Spaces are just not constructed. That also sometimes works, sometimes doesn't. Again, we go down for about 3 to 4. Good design alone is not enough.
Welcome to another episode of Architecture Playbook, a podcast series intent to impact, where we actually talk about from design to execution and everything which happens in between. Today we have a very special guest with us, Vinay Narayan, who is the principal architect of Poetics of Space Studio. The Poetics of Space Studio is a Bangalore-based design practice established in 2015, dedicated to creating contextual, relevant, and future-ready architectural solution. Rooted in design-first philosophy, the studio works across architecture, interior design, construction, delivering projects in both the public and private sector. Led by architect Vinay Narayan, the principal architect, the studio brings over a decade of hand-on experience in architecture design, interior, and civil execution. Welcome to our podcast, sir. We are very glad to have you.
Thank you for having me.
How and where the journey started, how the Poetics of Spaces Studio, where it started, and what was your inspiration in the early years?
My
phone.
inspiration stems from my childhood, particularly my interactions with nature. I was always drawn to the forms, colors, textures, and the way environment shapes our emotions and also the experiences. So the curiosity gradually evolved into the pursuit of the architecture as a profession. So where all these elements came together and translated into built form. Starting the Poetics of Space Studio was naturally an extension of this journey. So I wanted to create a practice that brings sensitivity of these observations into architecture. Spaces are just not constructed, but are carefully composed. So poetics is what we have termed because we wanted to be poetically, designing spaces as narratives, not as a predefined space. And also the spaces, what we term it as the people inhabiting them. So it our solutions are deeply rooted with the clients.
Okay.
So we work hand in hand with the clients, and that's how it started.
When you started your practice as a young architect in 2015, what was the biggest challenge when you faced just newly graduated architecture student?
So, in the early stage of building the Poetics of the Space Studio, one of the biggest challenges was finding the right kind of projects for us. Projects that aligned with our design philosophy. Initially, everybody is experimental. They want to find their niche. So that's how we also started. We were particularly interested in creating spaces that are strong emotion narrative, where design goes beyond the function and aesthetics to shape how people feel and interact with the environment.
Okay.
However, identifying these clients who share the same kind of mindset or were willing to trust us in the intent in the process was not always easy in the beginning. So another challenging was the establishing credibility. So while staying true to our niche as a language and as a young practice, there is more pressure to adapt to the market expectations.
Okay.
So, but we continuously chose to pursue the career and resonate with our core values, even if it is meant to be slower start. And we are able to act with like-minded clients and value them, their thoughts, their content. That was the driving force basically. So those early challenges ultimately helped us to identify ourselves and strengthen our approach towards the client and also the perspectives of different nature of the project.
So, who was your first client and how did you got it?
So our first client, in fact, was I used to work for an office called the Maya Praxis Studio.
Okay.
So once we thought like we moved out of the office, that's when we got an approach from a client who already worked with us in Maya Praxis, So I was the project architect there. So that's
Okay.
when he said, okay, Vinay, you are starting a new practice. Why don't you design my new home? That was my first project. It was a 30 by 50 plot,
Okay.
which is an east facing plot, G+3 structure.
Okay. Okay.
So yeah, that's how it started.
When you start a new project, sir, how do you start from a blank site to an actual design direction process?
See, our process is carefully structured first to ensure the clarity, efficiency, and high level of professionalism while respecting our clients' time, investments, and their aspirations. So, we begin with a in depth discovery phase, meeting at site or at our studio to understand the client's lifestyle, vision, or functional needs and budget, which translate into a clear and well defined briefs. This is followed through site analysis, concept development stage, where design ideas are shaped in response to both clients intent and also the site context.
Right.
So these are done through the we communicate these through drawings, presentations, visual walkthroughs to get the complete transparency. Once the direction is finalized, we move into the design detail, which is construction documentation, coordinating closely with all the parties at the site, like the client, the contractor, the consultants, and us architects, and also ensuring the technical precision. So, which also moves into cost efficiency and smooth execution of the process. The site supervision and the quality check is also ensured through this process.
Okay.
So finally, we ensure a seamless handover and continue to continue follow-ups as well. So once the project is done, we also do the post completion follow-ups, reinforcing our bond with the client, and also our commitment to delivering spaces very aligned into the client's expectations.
Right.
That's what we do.
So, sir, how do you begin with material, function, context, or emotion? What actually leads your process when you are designing as an architect?
Okay. So each project is a new approach. Each project is also learning, is a process of learning and unlearning. So we begin by understanding the client's lifestyle and their aspirations and their expectations as well. From there, the directions naturally emerges by itself. In some projects, function may take the lead. In others, it could be the emotional experience of the space. Or in some projects, material language also can be a leading factor. Sometimes the context of the site is also the forefront runner, which gets us to start up with something. So
Okay.
rather than imposing a predefined design or a hierarchy, we allow these elements to inform one another, ensuring balance and a thoughtful outcome. So the flexible approach enables us to create spaces that are not only contextually relevant but are also functionally efficient, but also deeply personal and meaningful. So ultimately our process is guided by the best served for the client and the project, ensuring that the design is unique, responsive, and also aligned with its purpose.
So, for residential projects, clients often ask for comfort as well as beauty with the balance of budget or maybe the timeline which you are having. So, how do you balance all the four with the client which you are having?
Balancing beauty, budget, the comfort of the clients, and also the speed in residential architecture or any project for that matters requires a clear and disciplined approach. That's the line where we draw first. The early in my career, I observed that many projects tend to prioritize speed, trends, which is actually functioning in the market now, and the standardization over actual needs and the living experiences of people inhabiting them. So the intent shaped the foundation of our projects basically. So we place equal importance to emotion, function, context, Our process begins with deeply understanding the client's lifestyle, priorities, and budget, as I told you earlier, allowing us to make an informed design decision from the outset rather than reacting later. Beauty is approached as a result of thoughtful design, not an added layer, ensuring it remains timeless
Right.
rather than trend driven, right? You know,
Okay.
like comfort is integrated through spatial planning, material selection, and sensitivity to light, ventilation, and usability. So budget and speed are managed through clarity and precision. So we'll define which is defined with well written brief and efficient planning,
Right.
and also the coordination and documentation at site, and proactive decision making with a lot of revisions, which doesn't get into delays and cost overruns. So by aligning the design intent and execution from the beginning, we create a streamlined process that respect both time and investments of our clients. So the philosophy reflects the balance, like, you know, the poetics, as we say, make speaks to the experiential and the sensory quality of the space, and the space anchors it functionally and purpose. So ensuring every project is not only beautiful, also practical, efficient, and deeply attuned to its users.
That's amazing because it reminds me of one of the projects which I was doing in Coimbatore,
Yeah.
and it was a commercial project.
Okay.
So the entire design was very well defined because it was a time, or I would rather say speed bound project. It was a 90-day project.
Okay.
And the entire showroom was supposed to be done in 90 days. After that, we are supposed to launch. So that speed which we were supposed to freeze the design concept, actually build up the entire space for the showcasing each and every element in the showroom, was so quick. That time I realized what is a pressure, time pressure for an architect, and that was the biggest early learnings I had. Do you have a similar experience or any example you
See,
want to
yes,
quote?
creating any like, you know, body of work is an experience primarily. So, and it's also a creative process. So it has its own time, but when there is a time frame which is like a very limited time frame, you need to see the scale of the project and see if it is viable to the time.
Okay.
So what we tend to do is, like, we work with the timelines for sure, because we do a lot of scheduling, and we also plan in advance. But any project for that matter has to be seen in a way that whether it fits into that time space or not. So yes, clients come in, they say that we want in either 10 days, 15 days, 30 days. Is it viable is the question we have to ask ourselves, because we will be representing ourselves, we'll be representing the client's aspirations, we'll also be representing the experience of the space itself.
Yes.
So if
Whoever
it,
is coming in
yes,
would
so if it can be done in that bit of time, I think it is a great thing to go about. But if not, also I think we need to take a step back. That's where the unlearning
yes.
comes, like what I was talking. So you have to unlearn a lot of things and see what is viable enough and inform the client.
Right, sir.
See, you are getting a better experience altogether. The result speaks for itself.
Yes, sir.
So that's what I feel in my practice. So
From the point of view of the homeowners or anyone on that page where who is hiring an architect, what is that one mistake they do before hiring an architect?
So the common mistake any homeowner or anybody who wants to get the space designed is approaching the project with a predefined idea of design based on trends, references, and ready-made plans, without fully understanding their own lifestyle needs, site conditions, or their long-term requirement.
Right, right.
So in many cases, decisions are driven by what looks appealing in short term rather than what will function well and feel right over the long term.
Long term.
So this often leads to compromise later in the process, whether the usability, the budget control, or so overall spatial quality. Without early architectural guidance or critical aspects such as orientation, planning, efficiency, material choices, and cost implications may not be considered holistically. The trust factor comes later,
Okay,
or
okay.
like first engaging architect in the initial early days of the project, and which is like whether you see you are guided well by the architect. So when you guide your client well, he trusts you.
Yes.
So
So
you don't
first,
have to be assuming that he's not trusting you or something like that. So
okay.
you can stay away from the assumptions, and ultimately you can save time, cost, and effort, while resulting in more thoughtful and enduring spaces.
Yes, sir.
So, and also one more thing is that the clients most of the times prioritize cost alone while selecting an architect, often trying to finalize a project who is offering the lowest fee. You can understand and relate to it while still expecting a high level of design outcome.
Yes.
So this approach can create a disconnect between the expectations and the reality. So the expectations is something and the reality would be something else. So in this process, the insufficient importance is given to the design as a thoughtful response to their lifestyles or assumptions or long term needs. So a home or any space risk being treated as a functional space to live rather than a meaningful reflection of the people who are inhabiting that space and using that space.
So at Architecture Playbook, we often discuss this gap between the design and the execution. So, what is your take on it? What goes wrong on site?
The gap between drawings and the site executions typically arises not from a single issue, but from breakdown in either coordination, clarity, or intent, basically. So, one of the most complex challenges in the misinterpretation of the drawings at site, when design detail are not fully understood by the contractors or executed without adequate technical guidance, basically. So this often is compounded by the lack of continuous communication between the architect, consultants, and the site teams, as well as the client as
Client.
well. So another key area where things go wrong is when decisions are made at the site without referring back at the design intent, basic design intent, which we actually floated down before. So usually it is an attempt to save the time or cost, leading to compromises in quality, spatial experiences. Incomplete or rushed documentations can also contribute to the ambiguity and result in errors and delays.
So, right now, how do you communicate with your contractors? Generally, how do you do it? Do you use any project management tool? Or
We address this by ensuring drawings are not only detailed. So that's what we are doing. We are doing the extreme level of detail drawings, but also have a clear communication supported by regular site visits,
okay,
coordination with all the stakeholders, and proactive problem solving.
how does it work?
See, we have hard documentation process and the soft documentation process as well.
Okay,
Hard documentation is the drawings which we are giving or the model which we are making.
okay,
The soft documentation is, as you said, through WhatsApp or mails or through messages. That is what we are doing, and this is because the most problems arise during the execution phase. So extension of the design is the execution.
right,
That's where
sir.
the problem arises. And since I have also used the app what you guys are providing, so I also feel that's a safe way to take a seat back and then find everything at one enclosed area. So it ensures more communication, documentation with all the stakeholders, which is
In one platform.
one
We
platform.
are,
Yes,
because you mentioned, because intent has to be delivered from the design to
yes,
the, so we have a design intent management system in the Architecture
yes.
Playbook.
Rather than envisioning everything on paper,
Yes,
so
digitizing it will solve
yes,
these
yes,
issues.
would solve these issues, and everybody who are all called as stakeholders the information is at the fingertips.
Yes, sir.
So that's what I found it really helpful. So Architecture Playbooks helps us do that. So we are actually also trying to take a small project, a medium project, and a large project, where we can use the playbook and try and feel what works for us and what doesn't work for us, and I also give you a decent review of the whole playbook, so that if it can be rectified for us in course of time, which I know will, because you are actually very promising in that aspect. So I think it should be fruitful to, and more useful to us in
Yes,
the
sir.
coming years.
Yes, so we are looking forward for that as well. Sir, can you share us a project challenge where you actually faced, where you have to rethink about the design process, what you originally thought of?
See, yes, every office actually would have gone across this. I used to work for an office before, so and we did one such project, which was an infrastructure project, where the initial design was developed based on the standard assumptions about the soil stability and site levels. However, once we started the execution, and we encountered unexpected ground conditions and more complex level of things which we didn't anticipate at all. So it was for one of the infrastructure project. We were doing a foot bridge, and then we had designed a foundation, and then based on unexpected things, like we encountered a lot of cables, water lines, the ethernet fibers and things like that. So though because of that, so we had to redesign the foundation at every level. So
Okay.
we used to dig for 3 feet, 4 feet, we find something, then
And
we
then again
redesign.
go.
Again, we go down for about 3 to 4 feet, again redesign something. So something like that. So then we actually did a pile foundation there. So
Okay.
we also did reacting with the soil stability as well. So the impacted the foundation strategy, circulation plan, and how the structure would sit within the site, rather than like forcing the original design onto the site. We took a step back and realized and evaluated the approach. So we worked closely with the structural consultants to adapt the foundation system, with simultaneously rethinking the spatial organization to respond better to that natural contours. So this led to more layered design, where level differences were used as an advantage to create distinct spatial experiences, instead of being tested as a constraint.
The changes which happened or the challenge which you faced in the site, was it a pro or a con for you?
Whether to speak, whether it was a boon or a bane, we have to understand the challenge, which ultimately became an opportunity for us to make more design, which is more responsive and grounded to its context. So, reinforcing our belief to the site conditions, one should always do, and should also guide the design process. That the flexibility in thinking, the essential to achieve a meaningful and well resolved outcome, is what we were looking there, and we could achieve also.
So, how do you manage the expectations of the client when they keep on changing during the execution?
Changing expectations are quite common, especially in residential architecture, because every day there's a new trend, and I mean, of course, with social media in place right now, people tend to see a lot of stuff and then try and come to us and then tell us that, okay, can we do this? So what we do is that we managing the the outcome with clarity, and communication also with the structured process. So this we do by establishing a well-defined brief, basically. So we
Okay.
already have a brief that is aligned on priorities. So, and the budget and the timeliness of the project. So we tell the client that this is what we are aligned to, and then we inform them. There's a reference point throughout the project, basically. So, however, we also reconsider the client's and their space, what they want to do, because ultimately they're going to be living there. So we tend to give them the clarity, the first, which is more clear. Their expectations may evolve into. So instead of resisting the change, we actually manage it through a transparent and phased approach. So any new idea or revisions are carefully evaluated in terms of their impact and design cost. So they come up with the chain in middle of do, like already 50% would have been done, and then they come up with something. We tell them, so we tell them the cost implication from there. So
Okay, so
whether
they should see in all different angles also.
yes, that's what they have to do, and this helps the clients to actually make informed decisions, basically. So rather than impulsive ones. So impulsive ones is what most of the clients do, but we have to, being an architect, take a step back, breathe in, and we have to tell them that by this, by maintaining open communication, documentation, the changes, and the setting realistic expectations. So at the every stage of the project, we ensure that the project remains aligned to the original brief, or if they get something into the project, so we tend to see what stage of we are in, then to realistically we see how we can fit in. So that's what we do. So that's actually a thoughtful evolution. So
Yes, sir.
each project is a thoughtful evolution without compromising on the quality, budget, and also the timelines.
Right, so it reminded me of a project which I was doing in Bangalore for a residence during my internship. So what happened was the client sent me a WhatsApp that this elevation I want. You know, as an architect, we always have this thing that I know better than the client and I can present something better for them as architects for design terms also. So I did the elevation and I gave him 5 different options for his residence, how the elevation can come in different ways, and all got rejected. And then I realized that Aditya, you have to bring down your ego, that sometimes has to be that expectation of the client to get a yes. And I really took that WhatsApp image, made sure the curves, the circles, the window openings are kind of matching, and that option he approved for. And that time I was thinking clients' expectations are something sometimes so particular that we have to, navigate along with them only rather than, giving our input so much. But that was my early learning and it still stays with
So
me.
that's still realistic way of the timeline in which he actually approached you.
Huh.
In case you would have you would have approved, and then you're done with construction drawings, and then he's getting
Yes.
a thing, and also you have done your foundations and
It would have been a rework for me.
rework for us. But again, yeah, the cost implications for him as well.
Yes.
So ultimately, the client will also be taking in the budget efficiency into consideration here. You work with the client and his design aspirations,
Yes, sir.
basically. So what we do is that we tend to speak to them and we raise some questionnaire. So we, in terms of color, in terms of shape, in terms of textures, what he's looking at, because he wants to go for a cladding or like a textured wall paint, external paint, things like that. So we questionnaire him with multiple aspirations what he has. So then we basically zero in on multiple options, as you said, and we actually make sure each 5 options are not the same at all.
Yes.
So he can see, like we have people coming in, and like we give them more options. They come and pick one part from each option and say fuse it
Let's
up.
make it together.
That also sometimes works, sometimes doesn't. So yeah, so we inform them,
Yes.
which is of realistic expectation and what looks timeless and enduring for him. So that's what we go about, and then we, yes, tell them which is the best option for them as well. So
Correct, sir.
we give them 5 options, and we also tell them this option number 2 and option number 3 will go with you for a long time.
Yes.
You can trust us and you can go with it. So that's how we do it.
So, what early lessons which you learned the hard way, which every young architects like us should know early in their journey? of career?
So the one of the most important lessons that I learned the hard way is that good design alone is not enough. Clarity, communication, and executions are just as crucial. So early on, there's a tendency to believe that if the design is strong, the rest will naturally fall into place. So in reality, even the best ideas can fail if they're not clearly documented, communicated at the site team, and followed through during the executions. So what I've learned is that the managing expectations, both the clients and the teams, being transparent about the budgets, timelines, and limitations from beginning avoids misunderstandings later. So as architects, we are just not creators of space, but also coordinators, problem solvers, decision makers throughout the life cycle of the projects.
So half a decade into the career, I my hardest lesson I have learned is that even if I know good design, or maybe I'm able to somehow coordinate also, we should know the business. I was not even knowing how to ask money or how to actually run my studio on my own if I am a solo architect. That beginning thing literally hit me hard, and I would want all the young architects also to start actually jot it down the Excel. You have to do that extra work of maths, but it is really crucial and important to know the business in architects. How you're going to fetch that extra money, because my IT friends are earning in like lakhs, and my junior architect as a my salary was 20,000, and I was not even knowing what was the difference and why I was not getting more money. So that was my early lesson, that you should be able to command and tell why, what value you're giving to the client and why you're asking more money. So it actually doesn't depends on the number of years you're having. It just depends how confident you are and how good you're delivering the design in the end, with correct amount of money to ask for.
Yes, indeed, the architectural schools are teaching you the intent to design. They're actually
Yes.
not even teaching you how to design.
So I
So
am taking initiative to go to college and
yes,
start teaching the
yes,
business. That's the
yes,
only thing I can
yes.
do for the
They're teaching
students.
you the intent to design, but the business aspect, ultimately it's a business. So ultimately, the business aspect is what we are not learning from the college. So what I suggest all young architects or young people who want to get into the design field and ultimately start a studio and go in for their own thing, so I would suggest them to actually work with a well established architect in the market and see how the business is being run. The design can be done, so we have a lot of tools where we can take the aid of, and the design can be done. So we all are good, designers, if we put some sense into some space. So but the business aspect is what we learn and see as a outcome of your evolution into the craft.
Yes, sir.
So the craft is one. Craft consists of both the business and the design as well. So then it is you approach projects more holistically, you approach clients more holistically, you do a lot of communication, you do a lot of detail, and you also respect your stakeholders who are contractors, people working at site, including your client, which in turn you don't have to command anything. So everything comes and falls in a place for you.
Yes,
So
sir.
that's what I believe, and that's what we take to achieve or to be successful, and also have a meaningful outcome.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. In every project, we do have a set of BOQ or approval drawings, project details, and stakeholders which are involved in it. And there are every four set of information are segregated in either mails or chat or actually going to the site and documenting it. There are all fragmented layers to it. How do you bring it together and deliver it on site?
See, fragmented documentation is one of the most underestimated yet crucial challenges in real time. So, when drawings, BOQs, revisions, and approvals are all scattered across emails and chats and multiple folders, it creates a lot of confusion about in which is current, what is approved, or what has to be executed also. So this lack of single source of truth often leads to miscommunications at site or execution errors, repeated misclarifications, delays, and in many cases unnecessary and cost escalations. So this issue is just not diagnosed directly, but it also impacts decision making and accountability as well. So teams may end up working with outdated drawings, or approval may not be clearly recorded, or important detail or intent can be get diluted over the process. So over time this affects both the quality of the execution and the overall client experience basically. So which I also feel that, since I've used the architecture playbook, so gets everything in unison. So much of it is resolved in this.
Yes, it's like a
So
single dashboard with every stakeholder is having its own task card to work on. So it
yes.
allows everyone to unifiedly work, and just by one click, everybody will get synced with the latest drawings. So that's the beauty of Architecture Playbook, which also reminded me of one of the project. Every conversation we are having, it reminded me of my experience where we had revision, and all the stakeholders, including my contractor, carpenter, except my welding person who was doing the fabrication part. I gave that we have a common WhatsApp group. So I sent the drawing. All of them saw and they knew, okay, this is the latest drawing madam has sent. They started working on the latest drawing except from the fabricator, and he did not knew that which drawing is the newest. Because once they come down to home, they will see 35 messages, 100 messages, and they have to scroll down. I am very sure they would have skipped it out, or by the time next week if I'm going, the fabrication was already done for the entire kitchen, and I was not in the position to actually ask for a rework, neither even ask him, have you even gone to the latest drawing? So these kind of things can be avoided very easily if we have one unified tool to work on rather than fragmented one. That's why Architecture Playbook was from the beginning as a problem solver rather than trying to figure out what needs to be done in the industry.
It reinforced the importance of having a clear and disciplined documentation system. So where every drawing is properly visioned, dated, and also communicated to all the stakeholders. Since then we have implemented stricter protocols,
Okay,
so
sir.
ensuring that only the latest approved drawings are circulated along the regular coordination. In one of our projects, so we had given a clear drawings for all the doors and windows details. So what happened was there was a mullion in between for the window. So the mullion was made in SS. So we had about two SS flats going across, which is holding the 16 rods horizontally, with these mullions in SS steel flat was going vertically. So the carpentry team misinterpreted the SS for wood, and
Oh,
since the flat was around 8 to 10 thick, so that became around 2 inches or 2.5 inches thick. So that in fact had a lot of repercussions when we looked at the windows, but later we had to rectify it by reworking the window details.
right.
These kind of outcomes which happen at site when everybody is not at same page, especially fragmented communication is happening.
Right, sir.
Updates shared, or messages or informal discussions which happen without proper documentations or confirmations. Over time, this actually creates a lot of ambiguity about what is final and what is not approved.
Sir, if every decision, change, and approval is tracked during the execution on site, do you think so it will make the project execution better, or it will add a layer of maybe insecurity for the execution team? What is your take on it? Is it good or is it bad?
Yes, project would significantly be better, but only if that the tracking is clear, consistent, and actually used by everyone involved, just like your app. So when every decision, change, or approval is properly recorded, it creates a single source of truth. So for everybody to be involved in this, reduces the mishaps. So what is final, what is not final, things like that. So it minimalizes the communication and ensures that all stakeholders are all aligned at every stage. So it also brings accountability, so making it easier to trace why decisions were made and how they impacted the time, or the execution or the cost factor also.
Yes.
So however, the real value is not just in tracking, but also how that information is structured and communicated. So if documentation becomes overly complex, or it is not regularly updated, so it can create more confusion.
Yes.
So rather than solving it, the key is to maintain that the system is very simple and also accessible and consistently followed.
Yes, so for that we have something called as freshness index, so that my contractors are not tech savvy, I would rather say. So what happens is they would even hesitate to even upload drawings on the WhatsApp. I want them to use technology. I understand that if they are given an opportunity to use technology, they will definitely improve, as well as it will help us to improve our project in a better way. We just need to equip them. We should give them the opportunity to use the technology, use those tools, and it will come out better only for us.
If you feel that all the documentation coordination is an afterthought, so sometimes most of the people involved with the process or the execution might do it, might not do it. But if you can get a system like this, they are bound to use it
During
so
the process.
you make them use it. So that is, you help the whole project to be streamlined, which supports better decision making, ultimately leading it to smoother execution basically. So and protecting the design intent and also the client's investment, where he provide better value to the insight what you're doing as a process. So they are bound to use it, so you make sure that you put a process across.
Let's move to the rapid fire round. What is one design trend you wish would disappear from the Bangalore overnight?
Getting buildings gift wrapped, that is in glass, because global warming is the most important thing which we are addressing right now in our environment.
If you could only use one material for the rest of your career, what it would be?
Earth.
What is the one building in the world you wish you would have designed?
Probably many structures by Santiago Calatrava. So
What do you want people to feel the moment they walk into the spaces that you have built?
the warmth, welcoming factor.
A city which you would love to live in forever, for rest of your life.
Probably Goa.
Thank you so much for being part of the podcast. We are very blessed to have you here. And all the small learnings and takeaways for this podcast was really amazing. I myself learned a lot today. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.